Hunda Estrata Montos. Oh, hello. How's it going? Sorry, I was doing my usual light reading. My name is Kris with a K, and this is Hail to the Deadites, the Groovalicious podcast about all things Evil Dead. And today, I have some very special guests with me from Boss Team Games, Wayforward and RetroRealms Studios. They would come in right now. We're going to be talking about the upcoming Ash vs. Evil Dead game and Halloween. Hi guys, how's it going?
Hey, good. How about you?
I'm hanging in there.
Cool. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for being here. I really appreciate it.
Our pleasure.
So let's dive right in. Tell us a little bit about yourselves for people watching that may not be familiar with you guys, and tell us how you got interested in the entertainment industry and how you got started leading to where you are today with Boss Team and Wayforward and RetroRealm.
Michael, you can go first.
Awesome. Okay. So I'm Michael Herbster, and I work at Wayforward, which we are known for doing a lot of pixelated games and a lot of other fun titles. I've been working in the industry since 2006, and I fell into the job by basically applying from a GameStop where somebody had found me basically off the streets. So I've been working from level designer all the way up to a director, and I love the brands that we have here. I have a special spot in my heart for Halloween, and I love Ash as well. So get good stuff so far. Tim, feel free to go ahead after me.
My name's Tim Hess. I'm the executive producer at Boss Team Games. I started in QA at Sega of America some 20 some odd years ago, 25 years ago now, I think. Bounced around in the QA, totally fell into it like Herbster. I was working retail, buying and selling women's clothes in San Francisco for a high-end boutique. Weird job. Some guy came in and he had a Sega badge on, and instantly like, what is that? What do you do? Because I've been a gamer all my life. Like, how do I get that badge? Like, tell me what you do. It's like, I test games. And at that point, I didn't even think that was a thing. I had no idea that was a job someone could have. And long story short, he walked me through it, and it's like, wow, I can make that much money versus what I'm doing now. How do I get that? So we worked it out. He's like, I'll come back in like 2 weeks and I'll get your resume. It's like, probably not, right? He's not going to come back in 2 weeks. But dude came back in 2 weeks. Can't remember his name, but I owe you. And then I just jumped into QA and moved up the ranks pretty quickly into production and have just stayed in it for that long. I love it. It's such a fun industry. The people are super cool.
Wow.
And you get to work on awesome IP like Ash vs. Evil Dead and Halloween.
I love that. I guess my follow questions to that would be for Michael, do you know like how Wayforward came to be and whatnot, and leading into getting involved with Boss Team Games and Boss Team Games? Like, Tim, how did Boss Team Games come about, and how did you guys acquire the license for Ash vs. Evil Dead?
You want to go first?
Yeah, so I'm not too privy on the startup of Wayforward. It's been around for a long time, way before my time. I know Voldy Way, which is the owner of the company, had started it with Matt Bozon, and I believe another director that was at Wayforward, and I believe still is Rob Buchanan, a long time ago. I think we just hit our 25th, I want to say. It's got to be older than that, actually. But yeah, it's been around for quite a while. We've definitely been turning out a lot of fun products over the years. But I know that our connection with Boss Team, I believe, is just through mutual connections over the years due to brushing on and off against each other due to connections. I will let Tim take over for that point.
Boss Team Games was started from a company called Diversion 3, which worked on Friday the 13th, the game. And that was sort of the foray into horror. And the idea was to create a company that primarily makes horror-focused games. That's what we want to do. If you see us or hear of us announcing a game, you're guaranteed that it's going to be in the horror space.
Okay.
And Boss Team Games was just a way to separate ourselves from Diversion 3. Same company. It's a subsidiary. It's a label. But this allows us just different creative flexibility with Boss Team. And how the Evil Dead license, or Ash versus Evil Dead license, came about was getting out there and trying to find what IPs do we want to work with, like what games do we want to make, what's out there, what do the fans want, what's going to sell, right? Ultimately. And we're all big fans of all the films. We're big fans of Ash versus Evil Dead, the series. And the relationship with Lionsgate formed. We did that previous game, Ash versus Evil Dead, the game, with Lionsgate and Saber Interactive. And we wanted to make another game with the Ash versus Evil Dead license. And I wasn't around when the idea was, hey, let's do a retro style game.
Okay.
But when the talks started to do that, everything instantly pointed to Wayforward. Once the idea of what kind of game do we want to do? We don't want battle passes. We don't want a store. We what would lend itself to this evergreen retro style IP? Speaking to Halloween and Ash versus Evil Dead, because of the legacy that Ash has. And we just sort of fell into something pixelated, and that was kind of it. We knew we wanted to have some, it could be a platformer, it could be action. We weren't really sure, but all signs pointed to Wayforward. If we were going to pick someone to do this style of game, their game expertise in that genre, their ability to handle IP and work with IP holders, and under those confines of what can and can't you do with a license, they were really the shortlist choice, the only choice.
And it's funny because that kind of leads into what one of my other questions was going to be, which is why retro specifically? Because as you mentioned, Boss Team, you guys did another Evil Dead game, which I absolutely love. I even have the collector's edition and everything. Awesome. And that was a very specific, unique type of game. It was online multiplayer, and it had pretty much all of Evil Dead, which, as any Evil Dead fan knows, is an amazing feat because of the history with the license.
The amount of studios involved was crazy. Yeah. Very crazy.
But honestly, kudos to you for being able to do what you guys were able to do with the game. So I was curious, from doing that game and then wanting to do more with Evil Dead. I know you said you weren't originally there for the conversations, but from when you joined on with the project, how did it come about to make the decision, instead of it being, like a fully 3D game, making it retro style? And I'm glad you guys, it's funny because me personally as a fan, for years, there were two types of Evil Dead games I wanted. And the first one was what you already gave us with Evil Dead the game. And the second one was this, honestly, what's about to come out. That, because I remember when the TV series first came out, they did a little promo of a fan-made video of what if the show was a retro game. And I was like, oh man, this would be great. And then my introduction to Wayforward was you guys did a game for the 2017 Mummy film, The Mummy Demastered. Absolutely loved that game. I suck at it, but I loved it. And I was like, man, I would love if these guys could do a retro Evil Dead game. And it's I feel like the luckiest Evil Dead fan right now, because my two gaming dreams are coming true now. So, but
wait till you play it.
I'm excited.
Yeah, wait till you play it. So the genesis of the pixel art or the retro realms concept came from our CEO going out there and making boss team game. Like we are going to do horror based games. So that means going out and collecting intellectual property that fans are going to want, as well as getting IP that's evergreen. Most horror IP, all the big ones, right? You know, there's about 10 that are highly recognizable, that everyone would want to see in a game like this. And that was really the catalyst for it. How can we make a game where we can have these characters, these separate universes crossover? And if we were to do a 3D game, things change just on the basis of it being 3D. As soon as you become 3D, there's this idea that you have to look realistic, right? You can't do let's say we wanted to get the top 10 horror characters in this RetroRealms universe so they can each have a game. Getting all the studios to sign off on, say, a Borderlands-esque cell-shaded, highly stylized look would be probably impossible to get everyone on board.
Yeah.
And once you start doing realistic 3D, there's the concept or the idea that everything has to be photoreal. And then the amount of hardware and horsepower and expense to make all these characters look so good. Not that we couldn't do it. It's just time and money. It just becomes more complicated when you have realism attached to things. What film or what show are you going to use for Halloween, for example, right? There's a lot of films out there. Other major characters have huge amounts of back catalog films, and different studios own access to different Halloweens or different Freddy's or Pinheads, right? Like everyone has their hands in different pies. So doing it in a pixel art style, the idea was that if we're doing it in a very unique, wholly unique to our universe that we're going to build, then we can create a storyline that is unique to us. And we are now not necessarily bound by specific rules of those IP. Of course, that took some massaging with the IP holders to get them to understand, yep, so this is 1978 Michael Myers. This is Ash from Ash versus Evil Dead, the series, the show, right? Very specific. And while we hit the beats of those shows in that film, and you'll see characters and instances and places and moments that touch on those, but then we spin off and do our own thing. And this allows us to the pixel art style allowed greater flexibility in getting everyone's head wrapped around, like, hey, it's like a 16-bit pixel game. This is what it's going to look like. This allows us to not have to worry about so much when it comes to what the characters look like, paying a license fee for this character or this person or this actor, voice lines. It just gets really messy once you do that. And while that stuff is awesome to do, this allows us a more flexible sandbox. We can do some cooler stuff that you wouldn't normally be able to do because it's not necessarily tied to canon in a film or a show. We can kind of step to the side and do our own thing. Long answer.
No, you're fine. I love it. As someone who talks too much, I love long answers. The other thing I was going to ask that ties into what you just said, like it's crazy how like your answers are just like seamlessly bleeding into my next questions. I was going to ask, why did you guys choose to do Ash versus Evil Dead specifically, and how? Because I assume, without getting into spoiler territory in case there are surprises, I assume it's mainly the TV series version of Evil Dead and mainly the original Halloween. Correct?
That is correct. Yeah. So these games are based on Halloween 1978, the OG, and it's Ash versus Evil Dead, the series from Stars.
Okay. So then my question would be, how did the decision come about to pick those particular entries specifically? And what about those entries interest you guys as game designers and developers? And what do you love about those entries to that makes it perfect for this game, this style of game?
Speaking to Ash versus Evil Dead, I think that one was, and it was easy because we had already worked with that group, Stars and Lionsgate. We already had secured that license, and it was for multiple games, so it was an easy reach, and it was more recent than the films. Not that matters in any way, right? Because obviously when we did Evil Dead, the game, we pulled from everywhere, right? We had all films. Securing the rights I wasn't there for that, but it was probably easier than securing Evil Dead 1 or 2 or going for Army or something like that. Like it was probably just easier to get Ash versus Evil Dead. Maybe it was cheaper. I have no idea. There's all sorts of variables that are around that. Maybe we couldn't get it because someone else has it and they're not doing anything with it. And the series was great. Love the series, right? And it's the idea was that it was fresh from a gaming point of view. There were more characters, Kelly, Pablo, that we could access. So when you look at it at what kind of game are we going to make, what do we need? We need characters, we need locations, and we need weaponry. We need, we had the Power Glove. There's more, right? With that particular branch of the franchise. Halloween was, you just go with the OG. If you can go with the first, you go with the first. So
that makes sense.
Any other, film that we're trying to get, or we've already got character wise to do the next two, is the original. We want the original. If we can get the original, we will always do the first one.
From a designer end of things, and getting the chance to direct both of these games, doing Ash versus the Evil Dead's a fun demake aspect to it, much like Mummy Demastered. It's fun to think about those characters getting reverse engineered into like a Mega Man-esque style gameplay. So that was kind of the twist with Ash versus Evil Dead. And then for Halloween, not that I think the LGN series of NES games for Friday the 13th or Jaws are great, but it's cool that those games exist. And I kind of wish that Halloween would have gotten the same treatment. So being able to kind of think of like reverse engineering, or I guess it would be reverse engineering, but like forward thinking of like a Super Nintendo game version of Halloween was a fun like twist to it as well too.
One more thing to add to Ash versus Evil Dead. When I speak about characters, it's also the evil in that show was always expanding. It was always different, right? Ruby and her offspring, and there was more to gamify, where we need enemy types, we need, like I said, we need weapons and we need locations, but enemy types and the creative freedom with, hey, we're creating a completely new branch of this character in our storyline. So it allowed us to create new stuff that you wouldn't normally see. We've got Deadites. They're unique to the game. They're not seen anywhere else. So a little bit more creative freedom with that franchise as well. Halloween, on the flip side, was a little bit tougher because we do have a nightmare realm, and you get to flip-flop back and forth between that experience, and creating new characters that would fit in the Halloween space was somewhat challenging because it is not a mystical, supernatural, demon infested kind of experience, right? It's supernatural in a sense, but it's not like, zombies and deadites and goblins and creatures, right? It's
grounded to help create the sense of horror, right?
Right. So it was a little bit challenging in that regard, just to make sure that we're treating the franchise right and we're not straying too far away from what the fans expect, which is why when we created our separate universe that happens within, you get to go to Haddonfield and you're in an asylum, and it's you see all these beats that you recognize from the film, but you step out of that and you're able to go into the world that we created.
Love that. I was gonna ask, tying into some of that, what were some of the inspirations behind the games in terms of, like, let's say you look to older video games, like you mentioned, like LJN and, you know, like Mega Man got mentioned earlier. What were some past games that were an inspiration to the look and feel and gameplay of this? And what were some inspirations in terms of how the story is structured? I'm trying not to make this like a multi-part question because like I have some stuff that kind of ties together. But yeah.
Before Michael answers, I want to just touch on that the idea from the start was to make gamer games. We wanted to make games that were hardcore. They're not too hardcore where the casual gamer won't have a good time, but these are, once you dig into it, you'll start to feel it. They're challenging. It's not controller breaking, but they're gamer games for sure. Okay, now you can go.
Yeah, so from an art standpoint, my goal was to kind of get something that looked like a Super Nintendo game or possibly an early Saturn game. We do a lot of parallax that the Super Nintendo wouldn't necessarily be able to handle. It does kind of blur the lines as far as our visual backgrounds go to where it looks like a little like Symphony of the Night-ish with a lot of fast scrolling background like clouds. It's probably trying to be a Super Nintendo game that's like blurring the lines a little bit. It's like hitting the nostalgia, but not like straight up giving you that Super Nintendo experience. So it looks good, but it's kind of breaking some of the rules of what that era had in mind. Oh geez, what was the rest of that question? It was let's see, art style, gameplay mechanics or gameplay things that we leaned into. Looking at Mummy Demastered, thinking about how that was kind of handled, looking at Mega Man, thinking about, our charge up attack with Michael Myers is like a dashing forward, almost shadowy attack, while with Ash, it's a classic-esque Mega Man charge up shot, except for it's a raycast that shoots forward away from Ash, so the shotgun attack, so it pulls out the shotgun, it goes outward and it just decimates everything in front of you. So it's an empowering move, and it sounds like it might be a little overpowered. However, there's a lot of enemies, so you deal with them as they come, and it gives you a little bit of a power fantasy on top of that. So it's always a good time with that one. And then playing a lot of the older LJN stuff and kind of thinking about the era of horror movies in that time frame and like how popular things were. And it tends to bleed off a little bit in the SNES era, but then it kind of kicks back in when you get into like the mid 90s to early aughts. And just trying to figure out how to blur the lines to make it feel like these games either could have existed in that era or could have existed hidden away as a pre-release later on down the line. Like maybe these were forgotten games as well, was kind of in our mindset.
Yes, I dig that. My follow-up question to that ties in is to what's the story that you guys crafted? I know you guys can't reveal too much, but like what would you say the basic story is for the game, and how did you guys make it so that you were able to get these two properties, but I've heard that when you buy both they can cross over and whatnot. So how did you guys come about to being able to get the license holders to agree to that, and what were what were some of the technical aspects of making that work and crafting the story so that you play as Michael and Ash vs. Evil Dead, you play as Ash and Halloween as well as the DLC characters, because it's Laurie and Kelly, right?
Correct. Yeah. So when you buy Michael, or when you buy Halloween, or you buy Ash vs. Evil Dead, they are fully playable start to finish as just that character, their own unique storyline, dialogue, weapons, move sets. They are not the same game, just playing with a different character. As you noted, if you buy both games, you can then play Michael in Ash's game. So you're traversing the entire world of Ash versus Evil Dead as Michael. His dialogue changes. You're bringing his weapon sets into that world. Same for Ash. When you bring Ash into Halloween, you're playing in Haddonfield. You're going through the same storyline or same levels, but different storyline. That was sort of how we had to pitch it to the IP holders to get them to allow the characters to play with each other. that, because when you look at the types of franchises that they are, there's no way that modern Ash would ever interface with 78 Michael Myers. The timelines are just too different, right? This allows us, we created a story where we've got a big bad, and this big bad is trying to get powerful people or things under his control to facilitate his needs. So he's chasing the Necronomicon. He's chasing Michael because they're powerful entities and weapons that he can use. So that's the story, without giving too much away. And this big bad is able to manipulate their worlds and make a mess of it, so to speak, so that you can now cross over. And that's why Michael can visit Ash's game and why Ash can visit Michael's game, because of what's happening with our big bad and what he's doing. Same with Kelly and Lori. When you play Lori, if you buy both games and you buy both pieces of DLC, or you pre-order and you get all the DLC, any character can play in any game. And each character has, again, their own dialogue, their own move sets, their own weapons. So you're still playing the same levels, but the play styles are very uniquely different, from having double jump to not having double jump, having aggressive slides to the range of weapons, or there's so many they just play very, very differently. Each time, it's not unique every time you play. Each time you play, every character has their unique storyline. It's the same storyline if you replay the game to cover secrets or unlock items.
All right. Michael, did you have anything to...
Yeah, it's basically like ROM hacking, or like classic lock-on technology, like Sonic and Knuckles style. So it's like, imagine you buy Halloween. It's like, oh, now I'm going to lock on technology Ash, and now Ash is going to run through like Knuckles running through Sonic 2 again. Like it's like, hey, here's that character's take. We just take the extra mileage of like, hey, they're going to have a different storyline because our big bad is altering the universes that these characters exist in order to placate to his evil schemes.
Alrighty, dig it. Can you tell us a little bit about the art and the music and the animation aspects of the game? Like, how did the art style come up? Not talking about the pixel art, because that part's obvious, but in terms of, like, for example, the artwork behind you, Tim, and the artwork that's in the game, like when the characters pop up on screen. Can you talk about the music that's used for the game? Who is the composer? How did you guys get with them? And, you know, the animations of the gameplay and whatnot.
I can fill the music one really fast, which it's we're using a musician at Wayforward that we've used before, which is Megan McDuffie. She's done work with us for River City Girls 1 and 2, and I believe more titles. She's produced a fantastic soundtrack that I hope everybody gets a chance to really listen to. The music's good enough that, having play tested the game, like once the music got in, I've never muted it before, which is few and far between games that I can actually say that I've worked on.
Same here.
Let's see, the slide-in art. We wanted to make sure that we could do story plot like the way that I know it's probably cheesy to bring up, like Harvest Moon does like slide-ins where characters come in to talk about things. We wanted to do something similar in that vein. It's commonplace in most games nowadays, but we also wanted to make sure you got a very big visual difference from just the pixel art, because although the pixel art's cool, you can get different emotions out of big, large pieces of art. And as somebody who likes seeing that stuff, and it's kind of great for production as well too, to help like rationalize character expressions and other things like that, minus Myers' inability to really show expression. It helps just to help like with visualization and like the conversations and how they're flowing. And yeah, the last question was
I believe it was just about like the animation.
Oh, the animations. Wow. We did a lot of like the animations are interesting for this game. The characters are all very fluid. We wanted to make sure that it looked like a Super Nintendo game, but much like I was saying, blurring the lines, we have a lot of more fluidity with some of our animations. A lot of things got sped up just to make like, much like we were talking about the characters being different. Ash moves like 1.5 faster than Myers. Myers is a little tankish. If we were to do other characters, not to point fingers at any particular ones, maybe other characters would even move slower than Myers due to being more tank-like. like. And then much like if we did even smaller characters than Ash is 3 units tall, 3 units tall, and Myers is 4. We would, if we went to like a 2 units character or even a 1 unit character, we'd probably crank up the speed on that character too. But Ash is our agile character, and then Myers is a little more tank-like. He can kind of take his hits a little bit stronger. But much like was briefly brought up, that the game's I don't want to say gamer hard because that makes it sound like it's a little too ridiculous, but you can run the game with like low health, or you can purchase upgrades to your health. And basically if you aren't great at the game, but you want to experience it, you can like upgrade yourself to have like a full heart selection to be able to kind of power through the experience.
Or you can speed run with the minimal amount of hearts.
Yeah, I think we might have a trophy or an achievement for that as well. So.
Oh, wow. And that actually leads into one of my other questions, and I believe we're nearing towards the end, so I only have a few more questions to wrap this up, because I'm sure you guys got things to do. But I was going to ask you guys about the gameplay style, because I know, like, obviously Michael and Ash play differently from each other, and like when they cross over, it changes things, as well as Lori and Kelly. I was curious if you could dive in a little bit about the gameplay and talk a little bit about the because I saw some footage where like there's a hub that's an arcade that you go into, and then you walk up to the arcade cabinets and you pick the game you want to play, and there's like VHSs in one room, and there's like a trophy room of like props and whatnot. So I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about that aspect, as well as the actual gameplay in terms of the levels, level design, the mechanics of playing as the characters and whatnot, and any stories and experiences you want to share of your time playing the game.
Tim, you want to take the arcade?
Yeah, I'll take the arcade. We're trying to not call it a hub because it's
okay.
a metaphor, right? But it is. That's what it is. It is your she shed man cave type building, right? This is where the arcade games are. You've seen the clips, I'm sure, where there's 2 arcade machines currently. There's a bunch of other arcade machines that are shrouded for future expansion. But in the arcade itself, we've got a video room where you can watch behind the scenes of us talking about the game, and a lot of the developers, Megan, and creating a specific, unique Halloween track based off the original. We have the original theme in the game, but we also have a unique spin on it, her take, it's super cool. Which is really great that we were able to do that and spin off and riff on that iconic track. There's unlockables in the arcade. You collect tickets in the game, and it allows you to purchase these items to look at and collect. I don't want to dig too much into it because we are going to release more things about that in the future. But we haven't really talked about it a lot. It's something that we built the access to these games within it, so it sort of encapsulates these arcade machines, and they all reside here. And we built it to be a ever expanding as we release games, new rooms, new features in the room, new behind the scenes tapes, new things to unlock and collect. So if you're familiar with the virtual cabin for Friday the 13th,
yeah,
it kind of stems from that, but we want to take that a little bit further, and to be able to update it with, when game 3 comes out, we'll add something to the arcade, we'll change something in there, just to keep it alive and fresh. It's a place where you as a user could log into the arcade and see something new. Maybe there's a demo that's accessible this week, or maybe there's something new on a wall. We have the ability to push updates to it to make it a unique experience.
Sounds cool. I almost feel like as a fan hearing this, I'm like, it'd be cool if you guys did like a little pop-up event where you like did like a mini recreation of like the arcade basement, and like people could go there and like try the game and whatnot, like live and in person.
Yeah, we've talked about doing, if we were to have a show space presence at a show, what would it look like? So those ideas have come up a lot. Hopefully, I'd love to see it.
Fingers crossed. And I'm sorry, Michael, I accidentally cut you off, so go ahead.
No problem. I think you'd briefly asked like level design, input or other things like that. So the levels are very classic Castlevania-esque as far as the flow goes, left to right. Some vertical sections, characters can grab onto walls and do a Mega Man X style slide, so you can wall jump off of things. Each character has unique abilities as far as like their roll goes, or if they can double jump. Lori's a little bit like Arthur from Ghost and Goblins, so she has a shorter jump, but you can double jump in midair. You're not locked into a direction like Ghost and Goblins, so it's a little more forgiving. So like you can actually jump away from something without having to commit to a jump, which is what makes Ghost and Goblins a cruel mistress. And then Kelly kind of works similar to Mega Man and Bass. Bass shoots in all 7 directions. Excuse me, he can't shoot down. Her charge up, she'll pull out an automatic rifle, and you can shoot kind of like a turret style, like you lock in space, and then you can rotate in 7 directions and shoot in all patterns. You've got your classic styled Medusa heads-esque characters. You got your sine wave patterns. You got roaming, just walking enemies. There's Deadites everywhere for Ash. Halloween, obviously, since we're dealing with humanoids, they are looking to basically gain the favor of our evil bad guys. So they're trying to stop Myers, and Myers is trying to basically bust his way through all the levels in order to murder as many people possible. It's a bloody good time, if you will. Level design, I would say inspirations beyond Castlevania. It's just making sure you're constantly being not necessarily ramped to a degree where it's intense, but like you're feeling the action. It's not like there's a dull moments. We do pull back a little bit when you're in the Nightmare Realm in some points. If it's a little hard in one section of the game, it's a good idea to possibly check the Nightmare Realm to see if it's a little easier on the other side. Our currency system does allow the player to gain more health on jumping between the realms. So currency. If you're looking to pick up upgrades quicker than jumping to the Nightmare Realm and killing enemies there, you'll gain more cash quicker.
Okay.
You're muted there, Tim.
You're muted, Tim.
So, but it's tougher when you go into the Nightmare Realm. So you're going over there at a cost, at a risk, right?
Sometimes it's also puzzle based too. We do have some cool sections where it's like, oh, hey, the pathway's blocked here, and it's like you jump to it, and it's like, oh, cool, the opening's here, and then you might have to deal with enemies you may not have seen yet, and that's the plus to having 2 sides of a level. Beyond the fact that meant some my buddy Alex Dupre had to build the levels twice and carve out 2 separate levels per each stage, but you get more gameplay to check out.
And it's funny because that was the other thing I was going to ask was about like the Nightmare Realm, because I saw some information about that ability, because your big bad created the Nightmare Realm, correct?
That's the living space.
Yeah, he's there, and he wants to take over our world, or Ash's world and Michael's world. Obviously, we're in 78 Halloween, and I do not know the year for Ash versus Evil Dead, but they're obviously 2 different timelines, and our big bad is able to dip into different timelines. So I wouldn't say he's a time traveler, but he's able to, 78 Michael Myers, and 20 years later, Ash versus Evil Dead, Ash, right? So his universe, his world where he lives is able to pretty much allow him to go wherever he wants to get whoever he wants.
Okay. Noted. And then the other thing I was going to say, without spoiling anything, what are you guys most proud of at the moment with this game? And also, what was the most challenging thing about this game for you guys?
I'd say just how cool it is, honestly. Like I'm a huge fan of Halloween and Ash versus Evil Dead and horror in general. Huge fan of platformers, Saturn era, even, obviously like SNES and Genesis, and those games are gone. They're not fully gone, but and you've got modern things. You know, there's things like Moon Scars, and like there's some cool stuff that's out there, but they're wholly unique and they're doing their own thing. These are tried and true experiences that we've all flavored before, but now they've got a super cool IP attached to it. The amount of fan service that's in there, like every time I talk about this game, or I'm like, it's one of the coolest games I've worked on. And we're working on a lot of games, and this is one of my favorite ones. Just I can replay it. I don't get bored of it. The fan service, the stuff that the team has put in is just top tier. It's super fun. Just the experience of cool IP, cool mechanics, cool little fan service touches. It's just a lot of fun. It's not trying to be something it isn't. We're not trying to, again, there's no store. We're not selling you a battle pass. There's no multiplayer. It's just sort of we're all familiar with this experience. As soon as you start it up and you start going, you're like, I know exactly what this is. And you kind of have this expectation, and we hit that expectation.
I'm getting more and more excited just hearing you talk about it.
It's a lot of fun. Every time I play it, it's so much fun. I hope everyone really likes it.
The buzz has been pretty good lately, so I have a strong feeling that it's going to do well. People are going to really love the game.
Well, you know, everyone, when we announced them, it was like, oh, there's a Halloween game. It's going to be an ASIM game. You know, that was. And then we and it's like, but it's not. You know, and we already did it with Evil Dead. So Ash versus Evil Dead had to be something different, right? So
yeah.
And that, jumping back a little bit, that was sort of what we wanted. We wanted to be a game that was unexpected for both IPs. Something that, you know, if I had told you, hey, we're going to release a Halloween game, I'm pretty sure that this was not what you would expect to come out.
I'll be honest, no, because when I heard you guys were doing it, I thought it was going to be an ASIM as well, which no complaints. I know like ASIM isn't everybody's bag. I like it. I like the idea of being able to.
I think they're super fun.
Yeah.
But you can do other things, right? And, and a lot of the Evil Dead or Ash versus Evil Dead fan base wants a single player experience, right? That was something that we, you know, since Fistful of Boomstick, right? And while that is not a modern single player story driven experience, right? But it is Fistful was a story driven single player game, right?
Yeah.
This may be a pixel art retro platformer game, but it's still a single player story driven game.
Exactly. Right? So you're still.
It's just we're still hitting that, but it probably wasn't what people expected. But hopefully that's okay.
I've seen quite a bit of the chatter, and I would say, even though initially there were people that were like, this isn't really what I expected, there are still a lot of people that are really excited about this. They think it looks great and they can't wait to play. People were pre-ordering instantly and whatnot. So
yeah, there was a lot less hate once everyone found out, it's like you can't hate on it because it's cool. You look at it and you're like, oh, that's cool. Wasn't what I expected, but that's cool.
Right. Honestly, I was just excited that there was I wasn't expecting another Evil Dead game this soon. Like my Necronomicon senses were tingling. I had a feeling another Evil Dead game might have been in the works, but I wasn't expecting this. But I'm extremely happy with this, and the only way I'll be even happier is if one of the things I really wanted in the ASIM game that didn't make it in makes it into this game, which is the season 3 canceled season 4 post-apocalyptic. Especially if I get to
that comes up a lot.
I bet.
I'm just gonna leave it at that. That comes up a lot.
Especially if I get to wear the Mad Max inspired outfit, like if there's any costume changes in the game like that.
That was a hell of a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
And then I think they released a bunch of concept art over
Uh-huh.
time, right? That stuff's super cool.
Yeah. Mike, did you?
Oh, I believe the previous question was something I was proud of, and can't remember.
The most challenging aspect of the game. Those are
I guess the proudest thing I'd say is being able to have the chance to touch both of these IPs. Like, it's an incredible privilege to be able to even work on these. Thank you to Boss Team proper and Voldy and everybody else on the Wayforward side for giving me the chance to do this. A thing that I would say was a hurdle for this project. Both games got built back to back, so that was a fun learning experience of like managing two separate games, talking about obvious hitboxes and other things like that, and how different each character needs to feel. Then doing the DLC pretty quickly after the core was done was definitely a fun learning experience. But what's there is great. I can still play it without feeling bored, which is huge for me, just because I've worked on some previous projects that have put made me get very sleepy due to the experience being very similar off of each experience. At least with this game, there's a lot of opportunities for doing fun setups. Ash has a fun, almost DuckTales-esque pogo off the chainsaw, so you can bounce around on enemies with that. Myers has something similar, but it takes a little bit of timing, so you get to experience a very heavy character doing a pogo and having to time the hits. So you can also enjoy the aspect of almost doing what Ash does, but you're not as agile.
Nice. And then I do have some final game-related questions, but before we get into that, because it's like closing stuff, I wanted to ask, for you guys, what are your favorite Evil Dead entries and Halloween entries, and can you tell a brief story about how you guys were introduced to Halloween and Evil Dead?
For the sake of the games, I'm going to say that the OG Halloween is my favorite. My first foray into horror, I grew up in New York, and we went to Hershey Park, Pennsylvania. It's like a theme park, and we went to this t-shirt boutique place in the park, and there was an Evil Dead 2 t-shirt. I had never seen the film. I think I had watched a Friday. Like, I wasn't really that big into horror. It wasn't a thing for me, but I bought that shirt because I thought it was cool. And if it's like the profile of like a half skull with a bunch of muscle and blood and an eyeball sticking out of it, like the profile. And I just thought it was cool. And then I found out that it was a film, and that was what kicked me off getting into horror.
Nice.
From my end, for Halloween, at the start of this project, I was aware of the movies. I had been aware of the people involved in them, but had never seen it. I had taken the time to watch the first three movies. Halloween 1 I like a lot more than the first three movies. I think the pacing is great, and just understanding like the history behind it and having to dig into the existence of like the lore of the mask, which is really cool once you understand like it was from that era's Halloween costume like setup. It's like that's super cool to think about. I think they did a great job of like building something that's supposed to be based in reality and like scaring the pants off of people in that era. Yet again, I can only imagine that I was born in '83, so it's before my time by a little bit. But I can respect the groundwork that it helped set up, and the song for that series is just obviously phenomenal. When you instantly hear it, you get chills. Like, even thinking about it, I'm getting it right now. For Ash, oh man, I love all the movies. In high school, I had a buddy tell me he wanted to show me the first movie. And like we did like a late night showing at a buddy's house that was up the street from us. I grew up in Lancaster, California, which is basically just a big desert bowl. Not a whole lot of stuff to do beyond just hang out with other kids and get into trouble. Thankfully, I hung out with a bunch of nerds, and all we did is watch movies and play video games. He showed me the first movie, loved it. Showed me the second movie, loved it more. I caught Army of Darkness with my grandfather, who had recently is no longer with us, but that's who introduced me to Army of Darkness, and that has a special place in my heart. And then the TV series I did not see coming, and due to having children around like the first one, was slowly like not aware of that it was even a thing, and then just fell into it due to this project getting it in front of my face, and I love it as much as the other ones. It'd be like choosing one of my children. I don't know, he's my favorite out of all of them. They're all good. I recommend them to people that want just to have a fun actiony horror experience.
Love that. Do you guys have a favorite moment from Halloween and from Evil Dead? And then I have the last question to close out after that. Oh, you're muted.
No, I don't take out. I mean, not for those particular films. Like if you ask me that question for Hellraiser, I could give you a different answer. I think with Halloween, it's the whole thing, just Michael's presence and how he's portrayed in that film. It's so unique, and compared to, you've got Jason and Freddy, and they're all very, very different, but Michael's sort of very, he doesn't speak. He just kind of like pops up when you knock him down, and when he gets knocked down, he just kind of like instantly falls over and you think he's out. It's just a different spin on the genre. And with Ash versus Evil Dead, it's the comedy. It like that's the standout, right? I think that this is all speculation, but if you watch the first film, it's so campy, and either they did it on purpose or they were like, well, shit, it's campy, we might as well just lean into that really hard and just go that route because no one else is doing that, right? I just watched Rise with my daughter. She wanted to watch it, and I hadn't watched it because I wait for her to tell. She's the horror child. So when she says, hey, I want to watch a horror movie, so I'm not allowed to watch films that she has not watched. So we watched that, and that was very different, right? Really less campy, but still had the same kind of beats with how the Necronomicon came about, and still, very cool conceptually, the style of what that is, very much like how they're all unique in that sense, right? Freddy is very different than Pinhead, and they're so unique and so interesting to be able to work on. So it's kind of hard to pick your favorite instance.
Noted. For me, I'd say Ash vs. Evil Dead is king, and then everything else is kind of like tied because it depends on my mood. Sometimes I want Evil Dead 1, sometimes I want the more campy comedy of like Evil Dead 2 or Army of Darkness and whatnot. So I also
Army's pretty core. I like Army. I mean, it's and wholly unique, right? But I think I'm with you on Ash versus Evil Dead. Kelly and Pablo kind of flesh out the I don't know. They just did a really good job adding characters that can kind of
elevates everything,
beat off Ash a little bit. And Kelly's great. Dana's awesome in that show.
Dana's spectacular. I guess my closing thing is if you want to talk about the pre-order, and for people who don't know, what is the release date? Because I believe it's soon, right? It's like
October 18th.
October 18th. Okay.
It's still
and sorry,
you can pre-order now. It's up on, I believe it's up on Xbox and Steam. You can pre-order it now. You can pre-order it off the Boss Team Games website for the collector's edition, which is nearly sold out, if I recall. That one's got the cool 12-inch Michael Myers plushie and a bunch of other cool swag. There is the retail one, Best Buy and Amazon, that has a similar Michael Myers. He's an 8-inch plushie. It's super cool plush. We handed them out at PAX.
Oh, there's two different plushes?
One's 12-inch. That's in the collector's edition that you can get from Boss Team Games. And then the retail is an 8-inch.
Oh, okay.
So there are two different ones out there. Super cool collector's edition. I'm not a collector of things. Like it's just not my persona. But we made some really cool stuff for this. Like if I did collect things, I would want this. It's just super cool stuff.
I'm gonna have to try and snag one soon then. My other question is tying to collector's edition. I'm sure you've seen the comments about how it's more centered towards Halloween.
Yeah, I knew this was coming.
I mean,
I'll chalk that up to timing. Sometimes you can get things manufactured and agreed upon, and what it's going to be, how big, how small, and sometimes things don't work out. It's not because no one wanted to do one. We just couldn't do it in time. But I will say, don't count it out all the way.
Okay. Little wink, wink, nudge, nudge there.
We'll see. I mean, there was obviously demand for it, right? To your point of bringing the question up, like, hey, it seems to be pretty heavy Halloween, and where's my Ash versus Evil Dead collector's edition? So that we know we know that there's people that want something, and we haven't discounted it entirely.
Okay. Because that was the other thing I was going to ask. Like, do you think it'd be possible to do something like if you bought the collector's edition, like here's a way to get Evil Dead collector's edition type merch at a later date?
Very possible.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we've definitely we've talked about all things collector's edition for current and future games, like how we can handle our player base and not feel like we are forcing them to double dip.
Okay.
So we're trying to be aware and cognizant of that situation for a lot of the players. So my best answer is stay tuned.
Will do. Did you guys have any closing remarks you wanted to make about the game for the fans that are watching at home?
They're both games. You should play them. They're super fun.
There's a lot of love in them. I hope the fans can find it and appreciate it as much as I did, making sure we shoved it in there.
So, well, I know I'm definitely looking forward to it, and a lot of my friends who are Halloween fans and Evil Dead fans, like in person or across social media, they've been ecstatic from the moment the trailer announcement dropped. So I have a feeling that this is going to do really well. And thank you.
We hope so. You're welcome. The fans are going to love it. As a fan playing it is top tier fan service. It really is. And that's part of working with the IP holders. We have to be true to the franchise. We have to be true to the characters, the locations, the objects. Eli in Ash versus Evil Dead, right? Like there's lots of things that you have to sort of put your checklist of what do we need, what do we have to have, and what can we squeeze in that players might not get, but someone will get it. So be on the lookout for that kind of stuff in the game.
I'm excited. Very, very excited. Well, Tim and Mike, I just wanted to say thank you so much for taking time to chat with me about RetroRealms Halloween and Ash vs. Evil Dead double feature. Really, really looking forward to getting my hands on it and playing the ever-living crap out of it. So thank you so much.
Hope you enjoy it. Thanks for your time.
Sure will.
Thank you.